There is a small island in the Chesapeake Bay where time feels slower than the tide. From the air, Tangier Island appears modest, a narrow stretch of land surrounded by water, connected to the mainland only by boat or small aircraft. There are no bridges, no highways, no skyline in the distance, just marsh, sky, and open horizon. For more than 2 centuries, families have lived here. They built homes elevated above the waterline. They harvested blue crabs from the surrounding bay. They worshipped in small wooden churches and spoke in a distinct dialect that linguists trace back to early English settlers. But today, Tangier Island faces a different kind of isolation. According to long-term geological and environmental studies, the island has lost a significant portion of its landmass since the 1850s. Shorelines that once held gardens and homes have receded. Storm surges reach further inland. High tides cover roads that were once dry. Residents do not debate whether change is happening. They see it in their backyards. The question is quieter and more personal. What does it mean to live in a place that may not exist for your grandchildren? To understand that question, we have to begin at the beginning, long before the island was at risk. Tangier Island sits in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay, roughly 12 miles off the coast of Virginia's eastern shore. Though modest in size today, the island was once significantly larger, part of a chain of marsh islands formed thousands of years ago by sediment deposits from surrounding rivers. The island was first charted in 1608 during Captain John Smith's exploration of the Chesapeake Bay. Permanent settlement, however, did not begin until the late 1700s, when families of British descent established small fishing communities on its higher ground. Over time, Tangier developed into a waterman's town. Its economy centered almost entirely on harvesting blue crabs and oysters. Because of its isolation, the community evolved with a distinctive cultural identity. Many residents trace their ancestry back several generations on the island. Linguists have documented a unique accent among some locals, often described as retaining elements of early British English speech patterns. For most of its history, Tangier's challenges were economic and seasonal. Harsh winters, fluctuating crab populations, occasional storms. Erosion was gradual, part of the natural cycle of barrier islands and marshlands. But historical shoreline maps tell a clear story. Since the mid-19th century, Tangier has lost more than 2/3 of its original landmass due to a combination of erosion, subsidence, and rising sea levels. What was once slow and almost imperceptible has become measurable within a single lifetime. And for the people who live here, that shift has changed the rhythm of daily life. Life on Tangier Island has always revolved around water. At dawn, small boats leave the docks, heading into the Chesapeake Bay to check crab pots set the day before. Blue crabs are not just a product here, they are the backbone of the local economy. For generations, watermen have passed down techniques, routes, and instincts from father to son. There are no chain stores on the island, no traffic lights. Most residents move by golf cart or bicycle along narrow roads that wind between modest homes raised on pilings. Front porches face the bay, laundry lines sway in the salt air. The community is small, fewer than 500 residents today. Church attendance remains high, and Sunday services continue to serve as both spiritual and social anchors. Families know one another not just by name, but by lineage. But daily routines now include something that previous generations did not track so closely: the shoreline. Residents speak of land that once existed where water now flows. Marsh areas that buffered storms have thinned. Wooden docks require reinforcement more often. High tides occasionally flood streets that children once rode bicycles across without concern. The changes are not abstract projections. They are visible markers, inches gained by the bay each year. And while the rhythm of fishing seasons continues, the horizon feels closer. For many who live here, the question is no longer whether Tangier is changing. It is whether it can remain. Over the past several decades, scientific assessments have made the situation clearer. Studies conducted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and coastal researchers have projected that without significant intervention, large portions of Tangier Island could become uninhabitable within this century. The island's elevation is modest, in many places only a few feet above sea level. Subsidence, the gradual sinking of land common in parts of the Chesapeake region, compounds the impact of rising waters. Storms that were once rare events now feel more consequential. Nor'easters push water deep into residential areas. Wooden bulkheads must be reinforced. Emergency repairs have become part of the municipal budget. In 2018, federal funding was approved to construct a seawall designed to slow erosion and protect key sections of the island. The project was described not as a permanent solution, but as a measure to buy time, decades perhaps, rather than generations. For residents, these efforts create a complex reality. On one hand, infrastructure signals commitment. The island is not being abandoned. On the other hand, the timeline is measured. Engineers speak in projections. Government reports use phrases like mitigation and adaptation. But families speak in years of schooling, in mortgages, in grave sites that hold several generations. The physical island may be shrinking gradually, yet the emotional weight of that shrinking feels immediate. And for some residents, the most difficult decision is not about engineering. It is about whether to stay. In recent years, the most defining moments on Tangier Island have not come from storms alone, but from conversations. Town meetings have grown more urgent. Public discussions no longer revolve solely around fishing quotas or seasonal repairs. Instead, they center on long-term survival. How long can the island sustain its school? At what point does maintaining infrastructure outweigh the population it serves? In 2017, national attention briefly turned toward Tangier after its mayor publicly appealed for assistance to preserve the island. Interviews followed, news crews arrived. For a moment, this small community in the Chesapeake Bay became a national headline. But when cameras leave, the tide remains. The true turning point is not a single flood or a single grant approval. It is the quiet recognition that younger generations face a different calculus. Some families have already relocated to the mainland. Others remain uncertain but committed. For parents raising children on Tangier today, the decision carries unusual weight. Do they invest in homes that may not endure? Do they encourage their children to build futures elsewhere? There has been no formal declaration of abandonment, no evacuation order. Instead, there is something more complex, a community living with awareness. Each reinforced bulkhead, each repaired dock, each restored marshland section represents both resilience and acknowledgement. Tangier has not disappeared, but for the first time in its history, its permanence is openly questioned. And that question changes everything. The changes on Tangier Island are not uniform, but they are cumulative. Population numbers have gradually declined over the past several decades. Where there were once more than 1,000 residents in the early 20th century, today fewer than 500 remain. The local school, which serves all grade levels, operates with small graduating classes. Some years, only a handful of students walk across the stage. For those who leave, relocation often means separation from generations of history. Family cemeteries remain on the island. Churches that once filled pews every Sunday now hold smaller congregations. The rhythms of crab season continue, but fewer boats depart at dawn. Economically, the community still depends heavily on the blue crab industry. Yet even that lifeline faces uncertainty, influenced by environmental conditions, regulations, and market shifts. Adaptation has become part of daily life. At the same time, preservation efforts have brought new attention. Seawalls are under construction. Marsh restoration projects aim to rebuild natural barriers. Engineers and environmental scientists visit regularly, mapping shorelines and measuring change with precision. Tangier is not collapsing overnight. It is adjusting, slowly, visibly, and with awareness. For many residents, the impact is not measured only in acres lost, but in conversations around dinner tables, in whether children imagine adulthood here or elsewhere. The island remains inhabited, but its future is no longer assumed. And that uncertainty reshapes what it means to belong. In national conversations, change is often discussed in statistics: acres lost, inches of sea level rise, population decline, infrastructure costs. But on Tangier Island, change is experienced differently. It is measured in front porches that now face open water, in children who grow up knowing their hometown may not look the same in adulthood, in families who remain not because the future is guaranteed, but because the present still holds meaning. The island continues to exist. Boats still leave at dawn, church bells still ring on Sunday mornings. The dialect, shaped by centuries of isolation, still echoes across narrow roads. Tangier is not defined only by erosion. It is defined by endurance. Across the United States, there are communities like this, places not collapsing in dramatic headlines, but quietly navigating uncertainty. Their stories unfold beyond major cities, beyond national focus. Unseen America exists to tell those stories, documented, grounded, and human. If this episode resonated with you, consider subscribing. There are countless places across this country where history is still unfolding in slow, deliberate ways. Sometimes what is slowly disappearing reveals what matters most about staying.